Last night, my daughter-in-law looked at me and said, "The guest sits over there." I smiled, set down my tea, and counted how many keys in this house did not belong to me. At midnight, I opened an old file, late taxes, a small suburban bank, and a name they had never heard of. The next morning, I knocked on their door not for permission, but to post the notice. The new landlord. My name is Evelyn Marlowe. I am 72 years old, and for 45 of those years, I was the chief accountant for North Star Civic Services over in Hawthorne Ridge. I have balanced budgets that could make a politician weep, and I have kept the records for every municipal bond and public works project in Willow County since the 1980s. I am, by nature, a woman who notices the ledger. My son, Cameron, invited me to this make-up dinner. He is 38, handsome, and possesses a liquid charm that has always allowed him to leverage capital, as he calls it. I call it floating debt. His wife, Sloane, is 34 and sharp in a way that cutlery envies. She calls herself a household administrator, which seems to be a title she invented that means she manages Cameron's leveraging. Their new apartment was aggressively modern. It was the kind of place designed to be photographed, not lived in. The walls were a stark, flat grey, and the furniture was all low, angular, and uncomfortable. Overhead, harsh white LED lights hummed, casting sharp, unforgiving shadows. There was no warmth, no history, no place for a memory to settle. It smelled of industrial cleaner and fresh paint, the unmistakable odour of a unit that had just been flipped. Sloane served a chilled cucumber soup. It was elegant and tasted of nothing. The trouble began when I rose to clear my own bowl. "Oh, sit down, Evelyn," Sloane said, not unkindly, but with the firm tone one uses for a child or a pet. I smiled. "It's no trouble, dear. I'm just—" "The guest sits over there," she said. She didn't look at me. She was already gathering Cameron's plate. The words hung in the sterile air, defining the space. I was not family. I was not Mom. I was the guest. I looked at Cameron. He gave a short, gurgling laugh, a sound he makes when he is cornered. He tapped his phone screen and said nothing. He did not object. I sat back down. My hands rested in my lap. I became very still, the way I used to when I found an imbalance in the fourth quarter projections. I simply observed. I saw the new deadbolt on their door. It was a heavy-duty, commercial-grade lock, far too much for a rental apartment. I saw the small, dark eye of the video doorbell next to it, watching the hallway. That faint smell of paint wasn't just newness, it was the smell of recent, hasty repairs. They let the silence pass, and then the real business of the evening began. "Mom?" Cameron started, leaning forward, deploying the earnest charm that always preceded a request. Sloane and I were just organizing our own files, and it got us thinking. "We worry, Evelyn," Sloane added, her voice softening into a performance of concern. "With you all alone in that big house, we need to know what to do. You know, in case of an emergency." The questions came, disguised as care. Did I have a list of my medications? I do. Had I updated my insurance beneficiaries? That was handled. And the house papers. "Mom?" Cameron asked, stirring his soup. "We should probably have a copy of the deed, just for safekeeping." "And your will?" Sloane said, nodding. "It's so important that we know where the most recent copy is, just so we can honor your wishes." I noted it all. They did not ask about my health. They asked about my assets. They did not ask about my comfort. They asked about my contingency plans. Then, Sloane produced a crisp, folded document from a leather portfolio by her chair. She slid it across the cold glass table, along with an expensive-looking pen. "This is just a simple emergency contact list." "Evelyn," she said, her voice bright. "It gives us permission to speak to doctors, utilities, standard procedure. If you could just sign at the bottom." I picked it up. The paper was heavy, official. I scanned the title. It was not a contact list. It was a durable power of attorney. I placed the paper back on the table. "Oh, I said, my voice thin with an age I did not feel. How silly of me. I seem to have forgotten my reading glasses at home. I can't possibly make out this tiny print." Sloane's smile tightened. Just for a second. Cameron just looked disappointed. The rest of the dinner was brief. I left before dessert. When I got back to my own home, the one my late husband and I built, the one filled with worn wood and warm lamplight, I did not make tea. I went to my study. I knelt by the old filing cabinet and pulled out a cardboard box from the very back. The masking tape on its lid was yellowed and brittle. In my own neat handwriting, the label read, "Real Estate and Tax." I peeled back the tape. My hands were not shaking, not even a little. I did not sleep. Accountants do not sleep when the books are wrong. My mind was already running preliminary audits by the time the sun came up. At precisely 7:03 in the morning, my phone rang. Cameron. "Mum? You up already?" His voice was slick with a false, bright cheerfulness. "I've been up." "Cameron, what is it?" "Just checking in. Wanted to make sure you got home all right. Sloane felt terrible that you left before dessert." He paused, waiting for an apology that I did not offer. "Listen, I was thinking, you've got so much paper in that big house. Bills, statements, all that junk mail. It must be overwhelming. Why don't you let me help?" "Help how?" I asked, my voice flat. "I can set up mail forwarding, just for the important stuff. Have it come straight to our place. Sloane and I can scan it, digitize everything, make your life easier. We're just trying to look out for you, you know, in case of an emergency." "Digitize?" I repeated. The word sounded like breaking glass. "So you can administer my mail, the way Sloane administers your household." "Mom, that's not fair," he said, the charm snapping off, replaced by irritation. "It was just an offer. We're worried about you. That's all. My mail is perfectly fine, Cameron. I've been managing it for 50 years. I don't require assistance." I hung up before he could reply and went straight to my mailbox, walking faster than I had in years. The box was full of the usual catalogues and circulars, but one envelope stood out. It was thick, heavy-gauge cream paper, bearing the official seal of the Willow County Recorder of Deeds. I tore it open, right there on the sidewalk. It was a courtesy notification. "This letter is to confirm your recent request to change the primary mailing address associated with parcel number 04B12. My parcel number. My home. I read the new address listed. It was not Cameron and Sloane's apartment. It was a private mail centre, a box number in a commercial complex 3 towns over. My blood ran cold. They hadn't just asked to help with the mail, they had already acted. The request had been filed online, yesterday afternoon, while I was likely ironing my blouse for their make-up dinner. I ran back inside and went straight to my computer. My utility bill. I always pay by check. I like the paper trail. I logged into the gas company website. A bright green banner flashed across the top of the screen. Thank you for enrolling in e-billing. Your paper statements have been stopped. I did not enroll in e-billing. My fingers flew across the keyboard. My water bill. Same message. My electricity. Same. They weren't just redirecting my future mail. They were actively dismantling my past, cutting off the paper trail, blinding me to their movements. I walked to the front window, needing to see something solid. My neighbor, Mr. Doyle, was retrieving his newspaper. He's a retired postal inspector, a man who, like me, notices things that are out of place. "Morning, Evelyn," he called out, giving a wave. "Mr. Doyle, good morning." I stepped onto the porch. "Tell me, did you happen to see anyone unusual around my property yesterday while I was out?" He frowned, tapping the folded paper against his leg. "Unusual?" "Well, I did see that courier service, around 2 in the afternoon. Not FedEx or UPS. One of those professional types in an unmarked sedan. A woman in a sharp suit. Came up to your door with a heavy briefcase, knocked. Waited exactly 2 minutes. Then left. Sloane. Or someone she had hired. I went back inside. If they were touching my mail and my utilities, they were touching my money. I pulled out my phone. The banking app I used, the one for Northway Community Bank, had a single red notification dot. I opened it. A security alert from 9:15 p.m. last night. Timed almost to the minute I was refusing to sign Sloane's emergency form at their dinner table. Alert. A new device has successfully logged into your account. Device, Samsung, Galaxy Android. Location, Hawthorne Ridge. I have never owned an Android device in my life. I moved. I did not feel 72. I went to my study, to the large, framed print of my first balanced civic budget, the one that saved Hawthorne Ridge from insolvency in 1985. I lifted it off the wall to reveal the steel face of my safe. I spun the dial, my fingers moving from decades of memory. The heavy door hissed open. I pulled out the main binder, the original deed to my house. It was there. My birth certificate, my late husband's death certificate, my savings bonds, all present. I let out a breath, but it caught in my throat. I keep meticulous copies. In the back of the binder, in a protective plastic sleeve, was the color photocopy of my deed. I always keep a high-resolution copy for reference. It was not my copy. Mine was sharp. The ink, bright blue and clear from the county clerk's signature stamp. This one was blurry, a cheap reproduction from a low-grade machine. The edges were slightly misaligned, the paper thin. Someone had been in my safe. They had stolen the high-quality copy of my deed, the one clear enough to scan, to forge, to use in a fraudulent filing. They replaced it with this garbage, betting the old woman wouldn't notice the difference. My hands were perfectly steady. This was not grief. This was not anger. This was an audit. I picked up my phone. I didn't use the compromised app. I dialed the main branch number for Northway Community Bank, the one I knew by heart. "Yes," I said to the operator, my voice pure ice. "I need to speak to the branch manager immediately. Tell her it's Evelyn Marlowe. I am initiating a full security freeze on all my accounts, personal and business. The reference code is Audit Priority 1. After the call, after confirming the freeze, I sat down at my antique desk. The sun was streaming through the window. but I did not see it. I saw only the ledger, the debits and credits of their profound betrayal. They thought I was a guest. They thought I was an asset to be managed. They thought I was forgetful. I took out a fresh sheet of yellow legal paper and my favorite pen, the heavy silver one I used only for closing the books at the end of the fiscal year. At the top of the page, I wrote 2 words: 48-hour plan. The 48-hour plan began not with panic, but with procedure. My first call was to the Willow County Recorder of Deeds, precisely at 8:30 in the morning. "I am Evelyn Marlowe," I said, "and I am formally disputing an online change of address request filed against my property. It is fraudulent." The clerk on the other end sighed, the sound of too much paperwork and not enough coffee. "Ma'am, if it was processed online, you'll need to file a formal—" "I understand the filing requirements," I interrupted, keeping my voice level. "I am informing you that the filing is fraudulent, and I need the name of the assisting person listed on the digital application for my police report." That changed the tone. There was clicking. "Okay. Parcel 04B12, processed yesterday. Authorized user, Evelyn Marlowe. Assisting person. Field is populated. It says, Sloane Pierce. Thank you. You've confirmed it." I hung up. Next. I turned to the digital intrusions, my email. The utility alerts had pushed several other messages into my spam folder, messages I had ignored. They were from a Harbour and Vale advisory. The subject lines were nauseatingly cheerful. "Welcome to the family portal and managing your legacy. A Harbour and Vale introduction." I had never heard of Harbour and Vale advisory. It sounded exactly like something Cameron would invent in a fever dream of borrowed prestige. I searched the company name. The website was a cheap template. All stock photos of smiling seniors and prosperous families. There was no physical address, no list of partners. This was the vehicle. The POA was the key. The address change was the getaway. I thought about Mr. Doyle's professional service woman. She arrived around 2 yesterday. I picked up the phone again and called the copy and print shop 1/2 mile from my house. "Good morning," I said. "This is Evelyn Marlowe. My son and daughter-in-law were in yesterday afternoon, around 2, to print some important family documents. They seem to have misplaced the originals, and I need to know what they printed." "Ma'am, I can't release customer information." "It was a standard state power of attorney form," I said, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. "I just need to know if they paid for it, or if I owe you money." "Oh," the young man said, relieved. "Yeah, I remember that. A woman in a dark suit. She was in a real hurry. Printed 1 copy of the state POA, long form, paid cash, about 2:05 p.m. "Did she use your notary?" I asked, holding my breath. "No. Our notary is out sick. She asked where the closest one was. I sent her to the Lakeview Mail Center, told her to ask for L. Ortega." I wrote the name in my ledger, on the plan page. L. Ortega. I drew a neat, red line underneath it. It was time to secure the perimeter. I spent the next hour filing. I electronically submitted a formal affidavit of fraudulent filing with the county recorder, disputing the address change. Then, I filed a petition for a temporary cadastral freeze, a request to lock my property's title, preventing any transfers, sales, or new liens until I could appear before a judge, while the fax machine whirred, transmitting my signed affidavits. I called my locksmith. "Mike Evelyn Marlowe, I need a full rekey, all exterior doors, Something wrong? Evelyn. Just balancing the books. Mike. How soon can you be here? While I waited, I walked to my front door. Cameron and Sloane had given me a smart doorbell for Christmas, a free gift to keep me safe. It had blinked at me faithfully for 6 months, a gift that, I now realized, connected directly to their phones, a gift that allowed them to watch who came and went, a gift that let them listen. I went to the garage, got my husband's old toolbox, and returned. I found the right screwdriver. I did not bother to disconnect the power. I jammed the screwdriver behind the unit and pried it off the wall. The plastic cracked, and the wires sparked once before going dead. I dropped the camera into an old paint can. My property was secure, now, for my assets. When I was chief accountant, long after my husband passed, I found a way to keep my mind sharp. I studied tax law. Specifically, I studied municipal tax lien certificates. When a property owner fails to pay their taxes, the county auctions that debt. I began to buy them, small ones at first. It was a hobby, like complex algebra. I did it through a shell company I established in 1998. Elm and Ash Holdings, LLC. Elm, for my husband's favorite tree. Ash, for the street I grew up on. It was my rainy day fund, my firewall, my quiet financial fortress that Cameron knew nothing about. I logged into the Elm and Ash business account. The cash reserves were exactly as I'd left them, clean, liquid, and substantial. I sat back. I had my defense. Now I needed leverage. They were trying to steal my house. Why? Because they are desperate. Cameron is always floating debt. Sloane is ambitious. Their new apartment, the one that smelled of paint and lies, was expensive. I opened the Willow County Assessor's public database. I typed in the address of their new, fashionable building. The parcel information loaded. Owner of Record Birchstone Properties, Inc. And next to it, in a bright red digital font that screamed failure, was the status. Notice of tax delinquency. 90 days past due. I smiled. They weren't just trying to move up in the world. They were trying to secure a lifeboat by stealing mine. They were about to find out exactly how shallow the water was. My plan required an operative, someone fluent in a world I only partially understood. I needed my granddaughter. Tessa Marlowe is 19, Cameron's daughter from his first sensible marriage. She inherited her mother's pragmatism and, I am proud to say, my head for numbers. She works 20 hours a week at the Hawthorne Ridge City Library, which means she is a master of databases and knows where digital bodies are buried. I called her. Tessa, I need your research skills. My house. Now. She arrived in under 30 minutes, her backpack slung over one shoulder. Her eyes immediately went to the raw, splintered wood on my doorframe where the smart doorbell had been. Grandma. What happened? I sat her at the kitchen table, the 48-hour plan ledger open between us. I did not soften the story. I laid it out like a quarterly report, the dinner, the insult, the attempted power of attorney, the fraudulent address change, the bank login, the stolen deed copy. She listened, her expression shifting from confusion to a cold, familiar anger. It was the same look I got when the books refused to balance. She did not interrupt. When I finished, she simply pulled out her laptop. Sloane, she said, her fingers a blur across the keys. She's gotten arrogant. I knew she would. What do you mean? She has a private social media account. She accidentally accepted my follow request last month. probably so she could show off to the other family. She posts stories videos that disappear after 24 hours. She thinks it leaves no trace. Tessa turned the laptop toward me. The screen showed a short video of Sloane, holding a champagne flute, panning across the sterile grey living room of their apartment. The caption, written in pink, read, "Counting down the days to ownership, big moves coming soon." It was timestamped 2 days ago. "They think they're buying their apartment," I said. "Or," Tessa said, her eyes dark. "They think they're getting this house, and she's too stupid to keep quiet about it." "They are trying to do both," I said. I pointed to my own computer screen, where the tax delinquency notice for Birchstone Properties was still displayed. "They are desperate. Their building is 90 days past due on its property taxes. It's heading for a tax lien auction." Tessa leaned in, her focus absolute. "A tax auction, okay." She toggled to her own screen. "I can pull the full county parcel file from the library's internal portal." We sat side by side, 2 generations united by a spreadsheet. I explained the mechanics of the delinquency. She pulled the county maps, the assessor's notes, and the total amount owed, including interest and penalties. "They need capital. Fast," I murmured. "They're trying to leverage my house to buy their building out from under its current owners." "I found Harbour and Vale Advisory," she said, changing subjects. But I knew her mind was connecting the two. "A cheap shell," I said. "Cheaper," she replied. It took me 3 minutes. The domain harborandvaleadvisory.com was registered 6 weeks ago. They paid for a privacy guard, but they were lazy. How? The technical contact email listed. They didn't mask it. It's a personal address. I just cross-referenced it. A profile picture popped up. Got him. The domain is registered to Justin Pierce. That's Sloane's younger brother. The one Cameron supposedly hired as a consultant last summer. Good. Excellent. Tessa. Log it. As she saved the screenshots, full-page PDFs, not just images, I took my pen and opened my new evidence ledger. I drew neat columns: date, time, exhibit, witness, description, exhibit. A social media post, Sloane Pierce, I wrote, referencing Tessa's digital file. Time, 48 hours prior. Content, counting down to ownership. Indicates intent. Exhibit B, Domain Registry Harbour and Vale. I continued. Registrant Justin Pierce. Establishes conspiracy? My new, old-fashioned doorbell rang. It was Mr. Doyle, my neighbour, holding a small black USB stick. "Evelyn?" he said, holding it out. I was reviewing my own security footage from yesterday. I keep a camera in my upstairs window, pointed at the street. Ever since those kids started stealing packages. "Yes, Mr. Doyle. I saw your professional service woman around 2:05 yesterday. She was wearing a hoodie, pulled way down, and a baseball cap. She walked up to your door, tried the handle. She was on your porch for about 11 minutes, looked like she was working on the lock. Then she left, got into a dark blue sedan. The timestamps are accurate." "Thank you, Robert," I said, accepting the drive. "You are a very good neighbour." I closed the door and returned to the kitchen. Tessa slid the drive into her laptop. The footage was clear. The woman wore a dark grey hoodie, but the camera caught her profile as she looked up. The sharp chin, the impatient stride as she walked away, the leather briefcase. It was Sloane. I made the next entry. Exhibit C security footage. R. Doyle. Time 2:05 p.m. Subject matching Sloane Pierce description, carrying briefcase, manipulating front door lock. Tessa looked at the ledger, then at me. You're building a legal case. Grandma. I am balancing the books, I replied. This is not a family argument. We will not yell. We will not confront them. We will not give them the chance to lie or destroy a single piece of paper. We will use the system they are trying to weaponize against me. Everything we do must be legal. Everything must be documented. We will not stoop. Tessa nodded, her eyes bright. She closed her laptop and stood up. She put her arms around me, a rare, strong hug. They thought you were just a forgetful old lady, she whispered. They picked the wrong person. The 48-hour plan moved from audit to execution. The Lakeview Mail Center was exactly as I pictured, a narrow room smelling of dust and packing tape. The notary, L. Ortega, was at a desk in the back, looking bored. I am Evelyn Marlowe, I said. I did not raise my voice. I placed my official driver's license on the glass countertop. I understand you notarized a document in my name yesterday, just after 2 p.m. I am here for the logbook entry. The notary, a young woman who looked overwhelmed by the title on her desk, glanced at my ID, then up at my face. Her own face lost its color. But you were here, she stammered. No, I said. I was not. But someone was, and she presented a false identification. I need your logbook. Now. I can't. You notarized a durable power of attorney using a fraudulent ID. You failed to perform due diligence. I am here to retrieve the evidence before I file my complaint with the Secretary of State. Her hands were shaking. She fumbled under the counter and produced a heavy, bound ledger. She flipped it open to yesterday's date. The woman? I prompted. Describe her. She was quiet, Ortega whispered, her eyes darting to the door. She wore a surgical mask and sunglasses. She wouldn't speak. She just pointed. And you accepted that the man with her did the talking. He said she was immunocompromised. He said it was just a family formality. Ortega's finger landed on the entry. See, he paid. She turned the book. I read the entry. And then I saw the photocopy of the ID they had used, stapled to the transaction receipt, as required by law. It was an Evelyn Marlowe driver's license. But the photo was a blurry, distorted image of a woman who looked at least 80, her features slack, her eyes vacant. It was a ghastly, insulting caricature. The receipt was clear. Service Notary Public, amount $20, paid by Cameron Marlowe. I require a certified copy of this page and that receipt, I said. My lawyer is waiting for it. I did not go home. I went to the law offices of Briggs and Marlowe. Hal Briggs was not a family lawyer. He was a commercial litigator, a man who understood contracts and consequences. I knew him from my North Star days. He had once dissected a fraudulent contractor's bid like it was a biology experiment. I placed my evidence ledger on his desk, the logbook copy, the receipt with Cameron's name, the blurry, fake ID, the timeline of the Harbour and Vale emails. Briggs adjusted his glasses. He looked at the ID, then at me. This isn't family drama. Evelyn, this is felony forgery. I am aware, I said. I want the power of attorney nullified. Today. I will file an emergency petition to invalidate the POA based on clear fraud. We'll have it voided by tomorrow. Good. While you do that, I will handle the notary. From the quiet of my car, I filed a formal complaint with the State Division of Notary Publics against L. Ortega, attaching the evidence of her gross negligence. They were not pleased. The system was now moving. The moment Briggs filed the petition, the alarms must have sounded in their camp. An email arrived, this time from the Harbour and Vale address. "Dear Evelyn," it read, "it has come to our attention that a simple administrative misunderstanding has been escalated. We feel strongly that this is a private family matter. We must insist on immediate internal mediation to resolve this before it causes public and permanent damage to the family reputation." A threat. Keep quiet, or we tell the world you're senile and fighting your own son. I clicked forward. I sent it to Hal Briggs. The phone rang. Cameron. His voice was a high-pitched, desperate whine. "Mom, what are you doing? I just got a call from a lawyer. This is a huge misunderstanding. Mom. Sloan was just trying to organize your files. We were just trying to help." "A misunderstanding?" I repeated. The words were flat, dead. "Yes, just paperwork. You don't need lawyers. This is family." I let the line go silent, letting him hear the absence of my sympathy. "Cameron," I said, my voice low. "When you paid $20 for that notary, you signed the log as the paying party. That document, the POA, has criminal liability clauses for fraudulent execution. You signed your name to a felony." I hung up. I knew Sloan would be the next move. She was the attack dog. But she didn't call me. 10 minutes later, my phone lit up with a message from Tessa. It was a screenshot. A text message from Sloan, sent just seconds after my call with Cameron. It read, "Tessa, your grandmother is trying to destroy this family. You need to stop helping her. You keep siding with her. You are going to lose your share. Cameron controls the will. Don't be stupid." I looked at the message, coercion, threats, and the final, fatal error, assuming I was stupid enough to leave Cameron in charge of anything. I forwarded the screenshot to Hal Briggs, Exhibit F. My phone rang. It was Briggs. "Evelyn, we have them. The Secretary of State has already suspended Ortega pending a criminal investigation. She's given a sworn affidavit. The threat to your granddaughter is the nail in the coffin. I am filing for an immediate emergency injunction and asset freeze against Cameron Marlowe, Sloan Pierce, and Harbour and Vale Advisory. By morning, they won't be able to access a single account tied to your name, or theirs. Freeze it all." "Hal," I said. The lock was in place. The trap was set. My name, Evelyn Marlowe, meant something in Willow County, but not to the people who mattered anymore. To them, I was just a 72-year-old widow. They saw the grey hair and the orthopedic shoes and the house full of old furniture. They forgot what I did for a living, for 45 years. I managed the cash flow for North Star Civic Services. I was not just an accountant. I was a financial cartographer. I could read a municipal ledger the way a tracker reads a forest floor. I saw where the money flowed, where it pooled, and where it dried up. I could look at a road construction budget and tell you, down to the penny, which contractor was skimming diesel fuel. I knew where every dollar was, and where it was supposed to go. My books always balanced. When my husband, Arthur, passed, the silence in the house was a physical weight. I couldn't just knit. My mind needed a problem. It needed columns to align. So, I found a hobby, a peculiar, precise form of accounting. I began buying municipal tax lien certificates. The mechanism is simple. When a property owner fails to pay their taxes, the county cannot wait. It auctions the debt. I would attend those auctions, always sitting in the back. I would buy the lien, paying the county the taxes owed. Then, I waited. Either the property owner paid me back, plus the 18% interest mandated by the state, or they defaulted entirely. If they defaulted, I followed the procedure. I filed the foreclosure. It was just arithmetic. It kept my mind sharp, and it was profitable. I ran it all through Elm & Ash Holdings, my quiet LLC. This hobby required a good relationship with a bank. I used Northway Community Bank. The branch manager there is a woman named Mara Ellison. Mara and I go back. About 15 years ago, when she was a junior risk auditor, I found a catastrophic error in her assessment of a civic water bond. It was $1 million miscalculation that would have bankrupted her firm and jeopardized the city's pension fund. I did not report her. I called her into my office at North Star. I showed her the ledger. I showed her where her math failed. I spent 2 hours teaching her how to fix it, how to rebalance the portfolio without triggering an SEC investigation. I called it an educational favor. Mara is now the regional director, and she has never forgotten. So, when Cameron and Sloane revealed their pathetic, clumsy plan, I understood the mechanics. They were playing checkers, trying to steal my one little square. I was looking at the entire board. I knew their building was tax delinquent. That was the first thread. But I suspected more. If a company like Birchstone Properties cannot pay the county, they are almost certainly not paying their bank. I accessed the county's public database. I pulled the mortgage records for their apartment building. The primary lien holder, the entity that held the actual note, was exactly who I expected: Northway Community Bank. Banks hate non-performing loans. They are a stain on the balance sheet. A property that is both tax delinquent and late on its mortgage payments is not just a problem, it is a toxic asset. The bank is looking at a significant write-down. They need to get that liability off their books, especially before the end of the fiscal quarter. I logged into the Elm & Ash Holdings business account. My hobby had done very well. I had more than enough liquid cash to buy that loan. Not just the tax lien, but the entire mortgage, the note itself. If the bank sold me the note, they would get immediate cash, clean their books, and I would become the new lender. I would own the debt. I took the new file folder I had created for this. On the cover tab, I wrote the sentence that Sloane had given me. A guest has no rights, but a creditor does. I picked up the phone. I did not call the branch. I dialed Mara Ellison's private line. Mara, it's Evelyn Marlowe. Her voice was instantly alert. Evelyn? Is this a social call? Or is this an audit? It's an acquisition. I said, I need to look at a distressed asset in your commercial portfolio, Birchstone Properties. I am interested in acquiring the note. Tonight. There was a sharp intake of breath. Evelyn, that is a deeply complicated file. It's non-performing. I know. It's non-performing and tax delinquent. You want it off your books before the quarter closes, and I want to buy it. Elm & Ash Holdings has the cash. I am offering you a clean solution. A long silence stretched. My educational favor. Evelyn. This isn't a favor. Mara, this is just good accounting. You get rid of a toxic asset at a slight discount. I get what I want. We both balance our books. Another pause. The branch closes at 5. Meet me at the side entrance at 7:30 tonight. Use the night deposit door. And Evelyn, do not be late. The line clicked dead. At 7:25 that evening, I pulled into the empty bank parking lot. The main branch was dark, the large glass doors securely locked. But around the side, by the commercial deposit slot, the heavy steel security gate was rolled halfway down. Beneath it, a single strip of yellow light cut across the dark pavement, waiting for me. I ducked under the halfway closed security gate. The bank, my bank for 3 decades, was silent and running on dim emergency lights. It smelled of floor wax and cold steel. Mara Ellison was waiting in the vault lobby, standing beside a heavy steel table. She was not smiling. "This is highly irregular, Evelyn," she said. Her voice echoed slightly in the marble room. She gestured to a thin file on the table. "This is a highly irregular asset," I countered. "Birchstone Properties." Mara tapped the file with one perfectly manicured finger. "They haven't just missed tax payments. They've breached their loan covenants for 2 consecutive quarters. Their occupancy rate dropped below the required threshold, and they've missed their last 2 interest payments." "So they are in technical default," I stated. "They are in actual default," Mara corrected. "The bank's counsel is initiating foreclosure proceedings on Monday morning, which is why your timing is interesting." She looked at me, the real question finally surfacing in her eyes. "Why do you want this piece of trash, Evelyn?" "My motives are my own. Mara, I am not buying the property. I am offering to buy the note. You get it off your books tonight. Elm & Ash Holdings takes the risk." I named my price. It was a steep discount, 60 cents on the dollar. Mara didn't flinch. 60. The land value alone is worth 80, even in foreclosure. The land value is irrelevant if it takes you 2 years to litigate the eviction of 30 tenants. I am offering you 60 cents tonight. Elm & Ash Holdings is a cash buyer. No financing contingency, no due diligence period. She calculated. I knew what she was seeing, just as I saw it on her balance sheet, the end of quarter report. The ugly red mark of a non-performing asset. The clean balance sheet she could present to the board. 60% of something was infinitely better than 0% of a write-down. "The board will never approve it that low," she said. "Then counter," I said. "But the clock is running." 65 cents on the dollar, she said, her voice sharp. "And you take it as is. Where is? 0 due diligence from us. You buy the default exactly as it stands." "Done," I said, "on 2 conditions. First, we close in 24 hours. Second, I want the earnest money in escrow tonight, and the full assignment of the note by the time your office opens tomorrow." Mara looked stunned by the speed. "Evelyn, an assignment of mortgage, the legal paperwork alone. My team is gone for the weekend." "The paperwork is minimal," I finished. "It's a simple assignment. We just need to execute the transfer documents. My attorney is waiting." I pulled out my phone and dialed Hal Briggs. He answered on the first ring. "Hal, I'm with Ms. Ellison. We have a verbal agreement. Elm & Ash Holdings is acquiring the Birchstone note at 65%. I need the assignment of mortgage documents drafted for immediate signature, and I need you to verify the state requirements." Briggs's voice was crisp, awake. "Assignment of mortgage. It's valid in this state. It's a simple transfer of the lender's rights. Once Northway signs, you become the bank. You inherit all rights under the original mortgage, including the default and the right to collect." "How fast?" "If they cooperate 2 hours, I'll draft the assignment now and have a secure digital courier service get it to the bank." While Briggs worked, I made a second move. My laptop was in my bag. I opened it right there on the steel table. The Willow County tax lien auction was scheduled for the next morning. I logged into the county portal. "What are you doing now?" Mara asked, watching me. "A second safety net," I said. I entered the parcel number for the apartment building and put in the minimum bid for the tax lien certificate, just in case this deal collapsed. "If I can't buy the note, I'll buy the tax debt." Mara just shook her head. "You always did run parallel ledgers, Evelyn." "It's just good accounting," I said. The next 3 hours were a blur of secure emails, encrypted faxes, and legal terminology. Briggs's digital packet arrived. Mara and I reviewed the assignment terms. It was simple, brutal, and fast. At 11:58 p.m., I authorized the wire transfer from Elm and Ash Holdings for the earnest money deposit 10% of the purchase price. "The wire is in," Mara confirmed, watching her terminal. "We're done for tonight. My legal team will finalize the transfer when the system cycles at dawn." I did not go home. I went to a 24-hour diner, drank terrible, watery coffee, and waited for the sun. At 7:05 in the morning, my phone buzzed. It was an encrypted email from Mara Ellison, subject assignment of note, Birchstone Properties. The body of the email contained a single attachment, a scanned PDF, executed and stamped by Northway's legal department. The assignment of mortgage was complete. Elm and Ash Holdings, LLC, was now the primary lien holder. I drove home. I did not feel tired. I felt balanced. I sat at my desk and pulled up the contact information for the current management company listed on the Birchstone building. "Good morning," I said to the confused-sounding property manager. "My name is Evelyn Marlowe, representing Elm and Ash Holdings. As of 7:05 this morning, Elm and Ash has acquired the note and all mortgage rights for the Birchstone Properties building. We are the new lien holder. Please update your records immediately." "The new what?" "I am emailing you the executed assignment. Furthermore, I see the building is in tax arrears. Elm and Ash has also settled that debt with the county as of 5 minutes ago. We are now the sole creditor." I paused. "I will be on site this morning. Please have a full rent roll and all maintenance reports ready for me." Before I left, I had one last piece of paper to prepare. I opened my word processor. I typed, "Notice to all tenants. As of today, all rental agreements and building management are under the direction of the primary lien holder, Elm and Ash Holdings. The building representative is Evelyn Marlowe." I clicked print. The machine in my study whirred to life, spitting out the first notice. I heard the satisfying click as the paper landed in the tray, the sound of an account being settled. I arrived at the apartment building at 9:30 in the morning. The lobby smelled like stale air and anxiety. The property manager, a nervous man named Fields, was waiting. He'd seen the assignment of mortgage and was now profoundly cooperative. I handed him the first stack of notices. "Post these on every floor, Mr. Fields, and one on the main entrance. Immediately." The notice was simple. It listed Elm and Ash Holdings as the new lien holder, the entity to whom rent was now owed. It also listed a mandatory safety and compliance inspection schedule. Starting tomorrow. I took one notice myself. I walked up the 3 flights of stairs to their apartment. I taped it firmly to their door, right next to the new, high-security lock they had installed. I knocked. Hard. I heard fumbling. The deadbolt slid back. The door opened. Sloane stood there, half-dressed in a silk robe. Her hair was wet. Her face was half covered in makeup, and she was holding her phone up, aimed at her own face. She was in the middle of a live stream. "Hey everyone, just doing my morning." Her voice trailed off. She looked at me, annoyed. Then her eyes focused on the paper taped to her door, right by my head. She read the words, Elm and Ash Holdings. She read the name, Evelyn Marlowe, representative. The colour drained from her expertly contoured face. It was the most satisfying audit I had ever conducted. The phone in her hand lowered, the live stream still running, now pointed at the floor. "What is this?" she whispered. "Evelyn. Cameron." He pushed past her, a coffee mug in his hand. He was wearing an expensive tracksuit. He saw me and manufactured that liquid smile, the one that never reached his eyes. "Mum, you're here, visiting. This is a surprise. This is not a social call. Cameron," I said. I held up a second document, the one I had brought for them. It was the certified copy of the assignment of mortgage. "This is a notification of new ownership. As of 7:05 this morning, I am your landlord." Cameron squinted at the paper, his brain struggling to process the legal text, the signatures from Northway Bank. I don't understand. Birchstone defaulted," I said flatly. "I bought the note, the entire mortgage. This building now belongs to me." Sloane finally found her voice. It was not the smooth, performative tone from dinner. It was the shriek of a trap snapping shut. "You what, you can't do that? We were buying this unit. Buying it." I feigned surprise. "That's interesting, because according to the rent roll Mr. Fields just provided me, you haven't paid rent in 2 months. Cameron turned on Sloane. "What you said you paid it. You said you were handling it." "I was," Sloane hissed, her eyes still on me. "I was waiting. Why pay rent when the purchase was finalizing? It was just going to be a credit." "A credit on a purchase you were funding how exactly?" I asked. "With my assets, the ones you failed to steal? That silenced them." "While we are discussing business," I continued, "let's review the other defaults." I held up my evidence ledger, which I now carried with me. Item 1, Harbour and Vale Advisory. The fraudulent company registered to your brother, Sloane, was operating out of this apartment. That is a violation of the lease terms, which forbid operating an unlicensed business. "You don't know that," Sloane shot back. "I do," I said. "My attorney has already filed a complaint against its borrowed license number." Item 2. The email you sent my granddaughter, Tessa, threatening her inheritance. That's coercion. A copy has been provided to the Hawthorne Ridge Police. That's a violation of... well, that's just a crime. Dear. Cameron looked like he was going to be sick. He grabbed the doorframe for support. I did not yell. I did not raise my voice. I was an accountant, delivering the final tally. "You are in breach of contract," I said, my voice cutting through the expensive, sterile air. "I am issuing you a formal, written notice to cure or quit. You have 2 options. 1. You will pay the full back rent, plus penalties, within 24 hours. You will also sign a full restitution agreement for my legal fees. 2. You will vacate the premises within 30 days. If you fail to choose, I will have you evicted." I handed Cameron the notice. "And one more thing," I said, turning to the hallway. I posted a second notice next to the first one. "New building rules. Effective immediately. All guests must sign in. All residents must provide photo ID for new keycards. And, my personal favorite, all financial advisory services operating without a state license are hereby banned from the premises. Sloane's face contorted. The mask of the household administrator was gone, replaced by pure, uncut rage. She lunged forward and ripped the notices from the door, shredding the paper in her hands. "You can't do this. This is our home." "Sloane, stop!" Cameron yelled, grabbing her arm. He knew. He finally understood. He was trying to salvage the wreckage. "Don't make it worse." "It is my property," I said, my voice calm. "And that was a legal notice. Destroying it is meaningless." I looked past them. The elevator door opened at the end of the hall. Tessa stepped out. She was not smiling. She held up the small, black USB stick from Mr. Doyle, the one with the video of Sloane at my front door. "Did I miss the meeting?" "Grandma," she asked. I turned back to my son and his wife. They were frozen, staring at the USB drive in Tessa's hand. Proof. "You were saying, Sloane?" I asked. The Willow County District Court was not a grand hall. It was a functional, beige room that smelled of stale coffee and old case files. But it was my arena. This was where the final entries would be made. We were there for Hal Briggs's emergency petition to invalidate the power of attorney and to request a restraining order against both Cameron and Sloane, citing harassment and financial abuse. They had a lawyer, a young, slick man, who looked as cheap as his suit. He immediately tried to frame it as a family dispute, a misunderstanding blown out of proportion by a sadly confused elderly mother. Then Hal Briggs stood up. Hal was not slick. He was a monolith. He did not present an argument. He presented a ledger. "Your Honor," he began, "this is not a misunderstanding. It is a calculated, multi-pronged conspiracy to defraud. Let's review the timeline." He placed the first exhibit on the projector. My evidence ledger, typed and indexed. Day 1, 4:30 p.m. The defendants, Mr. Marlowe and Ms. Pierce, attempt to have the plaintiff, Ms. Marlowe, sign a durable power of attorney under false pretenses. She refuses. He clicked. Day 2, 2:05 p.m. The defendant, Sloane Pierce, is captured on video surveillance at the plaintiff's home, attempting to gain entry. The USB from Mr. Doyle. The video played on a large screen. Sloane, in her hoodie, fumbling at my lock. Cameron's lawyer objected. The judge overruled him. Day 2, 2:37 p.m. Briggs continued, relentless. The defendants appear at the Lakeview Notary. They present a forged driver's license. The blurry, grotesque photo of the fake Evelyn filled the screen. They procure a notarized signature from L. Ortega. He displayed the notary log, with Cameron's signature clear as day in the paid by column. Day 2, 3:15 p.m. The defendants use this fraudulent POA to file an online change of address for the plaintiff's primary residence, redirecting her mail to a private box. Day 2, 9:15 p.m. They attempt to access her bank accounts. And when the plaintiff began to take legal action, Briggs said, his voice dropping, the defendant, Sloane Pierce, sent this text message to the plaintiff's 19-year-old granddaughter. The screenshot of the text, "You keep siding with her. You are going to lose your share," appeared on the screen. The courtroom was silent. "Your Honor," Briggs said, "this is not confusion. This is a criminal enterprise." Before Cameron's lawyer could speak, Briggs held up a hand. "I have 2 more items for the court." "First," he said, "a representative from Northway Community Bank is present to confirm a related matter." A woman from Northway's legal department stood. "Your Honour, we are here to confirm that the mortgage note for the Birchstone Properties building was legally and properly assigned to a new lien holder, Elm and Ash Holdings, LLC, as of 7:05 yesterday morning. Elm and Ash is the sole creditor." The judge nodded, making a note. "Second," Briggs said, "I ran a search with the Secretary of State this morning. It seems Ms. Pierce was very busy on the day she committed forgery. I present to you the Articles of Incorporation for Harbour and Vale Advisory, filed by Sloane Pierce. The submission date, Your Honour, the exact same day she forged the power of attorney." Sloane's lawyer was visibly deflating. The judge looked down at them, his expression one of profound distaste. "I have seen enough. The emergency petition is granted. The power of attorney is declared void ab initio as if it never existed. All fraudulent address changes are rescinded. A temporary restraining order is issued against both Cameron Marlowe and Sloane Pierce. A full freeze is placed on all assets related to Harbour and Vale." He then looked at Sloane. "And a copy of this transcript will be sent to the district attorney's office. You appear to have confused family with a criminal conspiracy." Just as the judge was about to move on, a man in a rumpled suit hurried into the courtroom and handed Hal Briggs a folded document. Briggs looked at it, and a slow, rare smile spread across his face. "Your Honour," he said, "a final development. It seems the original owners of the apartment building, Birchstone Properties, upon learning their note was held by a motivated new creditor, have chosen to avoid foreclosure. They have just signed this." He held up the paper. "It's a deed in lieu of foreclosure. They are voluntarily surrendering the property to settle their debt. As of 9:42 a.m., Elm and Ash Holdings is no longer just the lien holder." He turned and looked directly at me. "Evelyn Marlowe is the full, undisputed, legal owner of the entire building." I watched Sloane's hands. She gripped the strap of her handbag so hard her knuckles were white. Cameron just stared at the floor. A completely broken man. The gavel came down. The sound was like the heavy thud of a vault door swinging shut. I stood up. I did not look at my son. I felt the familiar, satisfying click in my spine as I straightened my back. The same way I did every year after signing the final line of the county's annual report. The books were balanced. The next morning, I returned to the building. This time, I did not knock. I used my own key. New notices went up on every floor, crisp and clean. Notice of new ownership and management. This building is now the property of Elm and Ash Holdings, LLC. Owner Representative Evelyn Marlowe. I held a tenants' meeting in the lobby at 10 a.m. I kept it brief. I introduced myself. I promised them 2 things. The elevators would be serviced by the end of the week, and all hallway lights would be replaced by tomorrow. I promised to honour all existing leases for any tenant in good standing. "My standards are simple," I said to the small gathering. "You pay your rent on time, you are respectful of your neighbours, and you are honest. We will have no problems. But this building will no longer tolerate fraud." After, I called Cameron and Sloane down to the small, windowless manager's office in the basement. I sat behind the cheap metal desk. They stood. "You have 2 options," I said, sliding the notice to cure or quit across the desk. It was the same one Sloane had ripped up. now reprinted and notarized. Option 1. You will pay the 2 months of back rent, plus penalties, by 5 p.m. today. You will sign a legally binding restitution agreement for my attorney's fees, and you will both enroll in and complete a state-certified financial management course. Option 2, I continued. You will sign a voluntary move-out agreement, vacate this apartment in 30 days, and forfeit your security deposit. If you choose neither, I will begin formal eviction proceedings tomorrow morning, citing fraud and breach of contract. Sloane laughed, a dry, ugly sound. And what you'll tell the world, you'll humiliate your own son, you'll air our family business. The media would love to hear how a cold-hearted old woman threw her only son out on the street. I slid a second, much thicker file across the desk. You mean this family business? Sloane. She opened it. The first page was the screenshot of her text message to Tessa. The next was the incorporation filing for Harbour and Vale, dated the same day as the forgery. The next was the notary log with Cameron's signature. The next was the grainy, insulting photo of the fake ID she had used. The last was Mr. Doyle's video evidence. By all means, call the media, I said. You want to make this public. I will sign the press release myself. You are a forger. Your husband is an accomplice. Your company is a sham. You call anyone you like. She slammed the file shut. I turned to my son. Cameron, I signed my new will this morning. At 8 a.m. My entire estate, including this building and my home, is now in an irrevocable trust. Tessa is the sole beneficiary and future trustee. Mom, he whispered. It was the first word he'd said. There is a single clause pertaining to you. Should you complete your financial counseling, and should you provide a full, written apology and confession to both me and your daughter, you may be considered for a small, discretionary allowance from the Trust's community fund, the same one I'm setting up to provide scholarships for accounting students. You will be treated the same as any other charity case. Sloane looked at Cameron, her eyes flashing, demanding he do something. He didn't get the chance. His phone, resting on the desk, began to ring. The caller ID was Mara Ellison, Northway Bank. He picked it up, his hand shaking. Hello, Mara. I could hear her crisp voice clearly in the small, quiet room. Cameron, this is a courtesy call. Given the recent court findings regarding your fraudulent activity, Northway Bank is severing all relationships. Your line of credit is frozen. Your business accounts are closed. And your personal checking is flagged for immediate settlement. We are calling your outstanding loans. You have until the end of the day. Cameron's face went entirely, beautifully blank. He hung up the phone without a word. I reached into my bag and took out a heavy ring of keys, the building's master keys. I placed them on the desk between us. The metal made a heavy, final sound on the cheap desk. Last night, I said, I was the guest in your home. This morning, I am the landlord of mine. Your right to stay here, your right to even speak to me, is no longer based on blood. It is based on discipline. And your account is severely past due. Sloane's new keycard, the one she had not yet activated, slipped from her limp fingers and clattered to the floor. Cameron just stared at the restitution agreement. He picked up the pen I had placed there. His hand trembled, but he signed his name on the line. I took my copy. I stood up. I walked out of the office and into the lobby, leaving them there with the bill. A maintenance man was already in the hallway, setting up his tools. I walked over and taped up my last notice. Welcome residents, weekly repair schedule. As I turned to leave, the sound of a power drill echoed through the hall, a loud, constructive, wonderful noise. I heard something clatter to the ground behind me. It was the cheap, plastic guest sign Sloane had hung on her door. It had fallen from its hook. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Please comment below and let me know where you are listening from. I would love to hear your thoughts. Remember to subscribe to Grandma's Family Diary, like this video, and give it extra support by hitting that hype button so this story can be heard by more people.